You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Now get the guns, the drugs, to my generation, I'll take the fall. The states, across the nation, and it's a sex, the gods, the fakes, the fraud, they're messing with me. Come on, come on, come on, let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Welcome back to Reliving the War, and welcome to the 27th of March 2000. This week Raw's in Houston, Texas, while Spring Break Nitro comes from South Padre Island, Texas. Later in the week, the WWF are going to present WrestleMania 2000. We have tons to get through tonight when it comes to Raw, but on SmackDown, Stephanie McMahon called her mom a bitch before slapping her across the face. That's your SmackDown recap for this week, folks. On Nitro, Shivani announces that yes, the internet rumours are true. Eric Bischoff is coming back to WCW. In regards to Vince Russo, the commentators tease an announcement later on. They're acting like they don't know if Vince is actually coming back to run creative alongside Eric, but this was just a hook to keep viewers tuned into Nitro. Next week, there won't be a live show, there's going to be a recap show. WCW are going to completely reset and begin anew. Bischoff said the current WCW had to get burned to the ground in order for a new World Championship Wrestling to rise from the ashes. So get ready, folks. Russo and Bischoff together writing TV shows. My goodness. I have no Nitro to cover next week because it's pointless talking about a recap show, but I will talk a bit more about the company reset and what a certain piece of wood from the neighbourhood had to say about this new creative direction on Thunder. Quite the interview right here from Hulk Hogan. With all this in mind, Nitro is a pretty weird show this week. A lot of storylines have now ended prematurely, so do keep this in mind as we go along. Throughout the show, a lot of wrestlers gave their opinion on Russo and Bischoff coming back. Finley's quite optimistic and he says he'll back this partnership made in hell all the way. The artist thinks Bischoff and Russo are visionaries, even though he joked about them potentially running the company into the ground. Vito says this move from WCW will get the company back on track, and Booker tells Russo and Bischoff to just do their jobs. Interesting, very interesting. We've got a jam-up guy this week by the name of Lawrence. Lawrence attended a local indie show in Horsham, Victoria, where he met MXW Carnage champion Terry Shaw. Terry said he digged the shirt, and of course he did. Who wouldn't? Thank you, Lawrence. Thanks to everyone repping Reliving the War at wrestling shows big and small. On with the show. We have promos to kick off our shows this week. The McMahon family on Raw, Kimberley and DDP on Nitro. This Raw promo is going to set the stage for WrestleMania. Linda apologises for what happened on SmackDown. She said what happened to her on Thursday was embarrassing and degrading. And she explains the only reason she came back was because she couldn't sit in her office any longer and watch her family fall apart on live TV. She felt it was right to put Mick Foley in the WrestleMania main event because he deserves the chance to live his dream. But because she's given Mick his dream, she unintentionally created a nightmare. That nightmare being Stephanie's terrible attitude. Linda can't describe how hurt she feels right now. She demands that Steph comes out and apologises to Big Mommy McMahon. But Linda doesn't get her daughter. No, she gets her ever-faithful husband Vince McMahon instead. Mr. McMahon says he wants to hear this apology too, but he's concerned about Linda leaving the office. He's concerned about her personal welfare, especially after what happened on SmackDown. Linda's going to be in Foley's corner at Mania in person. This worries Mr. McMahon. Linda says she can take care of herself, and so Vince says he hopes his wife doesn't take it bad when he raises The Rock's hand at WrestleMania and when Rock becomes the new WWF champion. Vince then tells Stephanie to show up without her degenerate husband, so Steph appears and she bets her mom and dad think her actions on SmackDown were rude, deplorable and unladylike. Steph says yes, it was wrong to slap her own mother because what she really wanted to do was slap Daddy Vince. So Mr. McMahon says this.
I'm gonna come up there and I'm gonna blister your little fanny till it turns blue.
Ugh, Triple H comes out to make sure there's no blistering going on tonight on Raw, and Hunter wonders what kind of family he married into. Yeah, I have the same question. Hunter calls the McMahons the most dysfunctional family on the planet, but the game wants to smooth everything over. He wants to be the voice of reason and he doesn't want to fight. In saying that, Triple H says Vince's time has passed and it's time for a new era in the WWF. It's time for Mr. McMahon to pack his bags and leave. Shane McMahon then comes out, he makes his way down the ringside, and Shane does agree that a voice of reason is much needed here, but he also agrees that Stephanie was out of line on SmackDown. Stephanie's a spoiled brat, and Shane hopes his sister remembers what she did until the day she dies. Clearly, Shane's a mummy's boy as he gets in the ring to support Linda. He says he stands against Stephanie and Triple H, but in regards to the WWF needing a new regime, well, that is something Shane also agrees with. The Boy Wonder then attacks Vince from behind. Shane may be a mummy's boy, but he doesn't care at all about his dad. And Triple H runs down to get in on the action too. McMahon gets pulverized, Steph grabs onto Linda. It looks like Shane's trying to reason with his sister, but then Mick Foley runs down to the ring, followed by the Big Show. A brawl breaks out that sees Mick Foley getting sent out of the ring thanks to Triple H and Show joining forces. And this leads to The Rock running down to get a piece of the action just when Hunter goes to pedigree Vince. Rock fights valiantly, but he ends up taking a chokeslam from the Big Show. Mick takes a pedigree from the WWF champion, and Vince gets smacked with Hunter's championship belt. The heels come out of this one looking good, which is actually going to be a theme as we head into WrestleMania 2000. Mean Gene Okerlund's pleasantly surprised to see Kimberly Page tonight on Nitro. He gets a little hot and bothered when Kim gets in the ring, but Mrs. Page is only here to announce her husband, Diamond Dallas Page. DDP makes his entrance. He says he's had a lot on his plate recently. He blew out his back, but he's working hard to make his WCW return. He then promotes the Ready to Rumble movie before saying he's got a new mission. Page is going to be the hardest working champion of all time when he wins the WCW belt for a third time. But look, here comes Jeff Jarrett to ruin everything. Slapnuts? Check. I am the chosen one? Check. I've got all the stroke? Check. Jarrett says he's going to crash the world premiere of Ready to Rumble. DDP says Jeff's going to see a lot of stars. Bada bing, bada boom.
Bada bang!
The whole promo was simply set up to promote Ready to Rumble, but all anyone's going to remember here is Kimberly Page. Jimmy Hart and Hulk Hogan went to a radio show, Q101. Sorry if I'm supposed to know what this is, but American radio shows really isn't my speciality, guys. A host named Man Cow said something mean to Jimmy Hart. Jimmy attacked Mr. Cow, and this radio host wants to fight Jimmy in the very near future. Sounds wonderful. And no, I don't care who Man Cow is, but I assume he's another shock jock, a dime a dozen during this era, it would seem.
We all get tired, I know how it goes. You need a little something to smash up your nose. Dial 811 LOL HBK. Sean Sniff Sniff Service will brighten up your day. Sean Sniff Sniff Delivery Service. Super kick your face, make you feel alright. Sean Sniff Sniff Delivery Service. One little snort and you'll be high as a kite.
Tonight, both Raw and Nitro are very promo heavy, so I'll be breezing through our matches this week, but don't worry guys, the WrestleMania review's already been completed and it's clocking in at nearly 45 minutes long. You can watch it now on Patreon along with next week's episode of Reliving the War. Chyna and Chris Jericho take on Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero next on Raw. On Nitro, we've got The Artist versus Mike Modest, plus Booker versus Ron Harris. A few nobodies are backstage at Nitro, and because The Artist doesn't think Chavo Guerrero or Chris Candido are worthy opponents, he's gonna wrestle one of these jabronis. The guy in the middle gets selected by Paisley, and this is Michael Modest. You may remember him from the Beyond the Mat documentary, but he also wrestled for Pro Wrestling Noah, AAA, CMLL, and other promotions. He got his ass kicked early on by The Artist, and look at this bump right here. Can't tell if it's awesome or funny. In the end, Chavo Guerrero came down and he and Paisley had words on the outside. They get on the apron after Paisley smacks Chavito, but Modest knocks Chavo down and Chris Candido ends up fighting with Guerrero outside the ring. The Prince then gets knocked into Paisley, he just shrugs it off and he goes back to Modest, but the newcomer pulls off white noise and he ends up getting a surprise victory. Only, it's not that surprising really, is it? Because Prince Ikea used to get beat up all the time, we're pretty used to seeing this. Candido and Chavo continue to fight as Tony Schiavone announces that a $500,000 bounty has been placed on Hulk Hogan by Sid Vicious. Sid isn't here tonight, but he's going to pay someone else to do his dirty work. Hulk Hogan arrives at the venue, Vampiro calls him over, and Vampy Balls warns him about this bounty. Hulk Hogan says, "Thank you, brother." The Harris brothers were supposed to take on Kidman and Booker next, but Heavy Diarrhea injured himself on Thunder. I would have been jumping for joy here, and I very nearly did. But it turns out Big Don was telling lies, and he ended up helping his brother beat Booker when the Harris brothers performed the H-bomb. Jeff Jarrett also showed up to distract the referee. Harlem Heat 2000 showed up to attack Booker after the match. Kidman came out to help his partner, but that didn't end too well. So Booker went out to get an equalizer, an office chair. I guess no steel chairs were available for Spring Break Nitro. So Eddie Guerrero's returned to full-time in-ring action, but he was very much eased back into it here. He and Benoit won this short match after Eddie was able to trip up Jericho when Jericho went for the lion salt. But the story here centered around Chyna trying to get her hands on Eddie and how relentless she was when attacking him. After the bell, the other Radicals came out. Saturn, Malenko and Guerrero were facing Chyna and Too Cool at WrestleMania. So naturally, Grandmaster Sexay and Scotty 2 Hotty came out to help their partner. Following the match, Vince McMahon got interviewed by Michael Cole, and Vince called out his very own son. Mr. McMahon wants to beat up the boy wonder. Linda wants Vince to reconsider. McMahon says this is his arena, and he confirms that he wants to fight his own flesh and blood tonight on Raw. On Raw next, Hardcore Holly takes on his cousin Crash for the Hardcore title. On Nitro, we've got a Hulk Hogan promo. Let's hope Hogan's promo goes better than the one he cut on the first episode of Raw on Netflix. Hulk says a few women were massaging Jimmy Hart backstage, seeing as he's got a bad neck after what happened last week on Nitro. Makes you wonder why Jimmy was picking fights with a dude named Man Cow, but sure. Hogan knows about the $500,000 bounty, and no one's going to have the guts to take the bounty on. As a matter of fact, Hulk will put up $500,000 of his own money if Sid will come out and fight him right now. Of course, Hogan knows that Sid isn't here tonight. Hogan says the greater the gladiator is, the more enemies he has, but someone who's not Hogan's enemy is Vampiro. According to Hulk, Vampiro's the wrestler of the future, and apparently all the Hulkamaniacs around the world agree. So you can definitely tell at this point that WCW wanted to push Vampiro right to the moon. He's had Sting's approval, he's had Hogan's approval, and I'm sure if Goldberg was around, he too would be praising old Vampy Balls. Hulk says he's seen a lot of people with their faces painted just like Vampiro in the audience, yet I haven't seen a single one. The Walls music then plays, and here it is guys, one of the greatest moments in pro wrestling history. The Wall, standing on a hotel roof very, very far from the ring, raises his arm to signal he wants to chokeslam Hogan tonight on Nitro.
And Hogan from the top of the hotel!
Say Wall! If you want some, come get some! That's the Wall up there, brother!
That's the Wall, brother. Hulk says he'll put up his $500,000 if the Wall faces him tonight on Nitro instead of Sid. And that's going to be our Nitro main event, Hulk Hogan versus the Wall, brother. Hardcore Holly didn't get a fair shake at Crash's Hardcore title, seeing as Taz ran down with his own referee once again. Crash got put in the Taz mission, Hardcore broke up the hold, the Headbangers then showed up and all hell broke loose. Viscera makes an appearance before the guys fight through the audience and into the backstage area. The Mean Street Posse try attacking Crash, but our heroes end up attacking each other and they don't get the job done. Kai and Ty then try to win the Hardcore belt, but they too have no luck. And Crash runs to the outside to hide behind a trash can. The other guys can't find him, so Crash leaves Raw still the Hardcore champion. I wonder if he's now regretting introducing that 24-hour rule. Shane McMahon says Vince vs Shane is a dream match. The young lion versus the old guard. Shane would love to get his hands on his dad, but when asked if he's going to accept Vince's challenge tonight, Shane says no. Up next on Raw, the Road Dogg takes on Rikishi. On Nitro, the Mamalukes take on the Young Dragons. Road Dogg and X-Pac face Rikishi and Kane this week at WrestleMania, so we're getting a little taster tonight on Raw. Rikishi takes a dancey punch, but it doesn't knock him down, so he's able to hit Road Dogg immediately afterwards with a standing sidekick, and Road Dogg falls into position for the stink face. Road Dogg's face gets lost deep inside Big Keisha's rear end, and that's it over. The DOGG gets himself counted out. I wasn't joking when I said tonight's shows are very promo heavy, and therefore the action in the ring definitely took a back seat. Too Cool come down, the boys dance alongside the Big Goose, and speaking of promos, The Rock gets interviewed backstage before Raw goes to a commercial break. Rock doesn't care about this ongoing soap opera within the McMahon family, whether it's Stephanie slapping her mom, Vince turning on Linda, Stephanie's dog taking a poop on Shane's carpet, The Rock couldn't care less. After what happened at the beginning of Raw, The Rock's looking for a little revenge. Whether it's Triple H, Big Show, or any McMahon at all, someone's gonna smell what The Rock's cooking. And so The Rock does want to compete tonight on Raw, but more on this in a moment. On Nitro, the Mamalukes haven't forgotten that Disco Inferno was supposed to get them a match against the Harris brothers for the tag team belts, but Disco says WCW will have no choice but to give the Pisons their title opportunity when they beat the Young Dragons next on Nitro. Ron and Dawn watched this interview backstage, and it looks like they're going to interfere in this matchup. Whoopity-doo. Some good action here with some good young WCW talent, but this guy right here would rather be at Raw. As a matter of fact, I've seen more I'd rather be at Raw signs than people with their faces painted like Vampiro. It was during this match when Tony Schiavone announced that Vince Russo is indeed going to return to WCW alongside Eric Bischoff. And Mark Madden says it's either going to work or it's not going to work at all. Incredible foresight right here from Mr. Madden. Again, the action in the ring is fantastic, but the commentators aren't paying attention. They're way too busy talking about the partnership made in hell. The Young Dragons gave Schiavone and Madden no choice but to pay attention when they pulled off this double team top rope attack. This move scored the Young Dragons the win, which should definitely be considered an upset. For some reason, Ron and Dawn went after the Young Dragons and not the Mamalukes, but who cares, right? Russo and Bischoff are joining forces to pull WCW out of the trenches. Can't wait to see how that works out. Dean Malenko and Perry Saturn take on the Hardy Boys in our next Raw match. On Nitro, it's Team Package versus Sting and Vampiro. Edge and Christian sat at ringside to scout out the Hardys. These boys have a triangle ladder match to look forward to this week at WrestleMania that also features the Dudleys. And Edge reveals on commentary that while he and Christian respect the Hardys as workers, personally, Matt and Jeff are very self-centered. All they can talk about is the Hardy Boys. Poetry in motion very early from the Hardys right here. Dean comes back with a jumping leg lariat and the Radicals pull off a double back elbow. Ed says he and Christian are going to run over anyone who gets in their way. It appears that these two have a brand new attitude heading into Mania 2000. And back in the ring, the Radicals pull off their double team backbreaker and knee drop combo. Matt needs to tag out. A Russian leg sweep gives him the opportunity he's looking for. Jeff comes in with a double drop kick to Malenko and Saturn, and the Hardys then get a chance to show off their double team abilities. The match ends with Edge and Christian interfering. Christian pulls Saturn out of harm's way when Jeff goes for a swanton bomb, and Edge spears Jeff before getting out of the ring. Saturn wins the match with a double arm suplex, and yeah, Edge and Christian getting a bit nasty here. Bad boys. Backstage, Shane McMahon accepts The Rock's challenge for a match. It's going to be Shane and the Big Show versus The Rock in a 2-on-1 bout. So you just know what's going to happen here. Remember, there's another McMahon looking for a fight tonight who just so happens to be in The Rock's corner at WrestleMania. The Nitro Tag Team match was messy in the best way possible. Vampiro and Flair stayed put, but the action between these two was quite vanilla. Lex and Sting, meanwhile, had a lot of fun fighting up the ramp and over at the pool area. Lex gets backdropped into the swimming pool as is tradition at Spring Break shows. The two then went to a food bar where the Total Package got some salsa thrown in his face. Back in the ring, Flair had the figure 4 locked in, but no one cares because Sting and Lex are making their way down to the beach. Now, things do get a bit dumb when the two start using inflatable objects to hurt each other, and it's Miss Elizabeth who ends up doing the most damage here when she hits Sting with her shoe. Lex then finds a conveniently placed surfboard and he uses it to hurt Sting even more. And amazingly, while all this is going on, Tony Schiavone is still screaming about Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo. Fuck up, Tony, and enjoy the madness happening before your very eyes. Back in the ring, Vampiro delivers a spinning wheel kick, but the match ends down at the beach. Luger gets backdropped into the drink, and our match ends with a pile driver with a splash. Sting wins via pinfall, a very fun tag team match here on Nitro, and it stands out because matches like this are a rarity these days in World Championship Wrestling. Kurt Angle tries his luck against Kane in our next Raw match. On Nitro, we've got Parka versus Meng. Kurt believes there's some sort of conspiracy going on, seeing as he has to defend both his IC and European Championships in a two-fall triple threat match at WrestleMania. He wants to get to the bottom of this conspiracy, but first he's got to deal with the Big Red Machine. Angle gets wrecked in the corner, the Eurocontinental Champion takes a big boot. Angle tries to slow things down with a chancery, and we see Bob Backlund watching backstage as Kane breaks free. Angle goes for a takedown, but he just sets himself up for a falling powerbomb. And while Kurt does try to fight back once again, he ends up getting planted with a sidewalk slam. Kane performs his diving clothesline, but afterwards Kurt slows his opponent down with a drop toe hold. He then lifts his European belt, hoping to hit the Big Red Machine, but Kane performs a kick to the midsection before grabbing Angle by the throat. The referee doesn't see Kurt's low blow though, and Angle then grabs his IC title. He's going to try to hit Kane once again, and this time he's successful. The referee saw what happened, Angle gets disqualified, and Kurt seems happy enough with the outcome. You don't get away with doing this kind of thing to Kane though, so the Devil's favourite demon grabs Kurt on the rampway and he brings him back in for a chokeslam and a tombstone. JR says Kane sending a message to X-Pac right here, and I am surprised X-Pac didn't make an appearance, but there you go. Vince McMahon confirms he's going to team up with The Rock later tonight to face Shane in the Big Show, and there's nothing anyone, including The Rock, can do about it. Saw that coming a mile off. What I didn't see coming was Stephanie making Triple H the special referee for this main event. Linda isn't going to let her daughter get away with any more bullshit, so Mummy McMahon makes Mick Foley the second guest referee. My god, it's getting a bit convoluted, isn't it? Over on Nitro, Meng's afro is looking absolutely fucking fantastic. Low flying aircraft would get stuck in that thing. Poor Parka gets into trouble again when his voiceover guy says Parka's going to knock the kinks out of that Angela Davis looking afro Meng's got going on. And for those who don't know who Angela Davis is, here you go. Meng proceeds to beat the ever-loving crap out of Parka, but a referee bump allows the chairman to grab his weapon of choice. Meng takes a chair shot, but his afro absorbs all the impact. And so our match ends with a Tongan death grip and a pinfall victory for the man called Meng. Fit Finlay and Tank Abbott then show up at ringside and they have a fight. I can't remember if this feud continues after Russo and Bischoff appear, but I don't really care either. Steve Blackman thinks his tag team partner's up to no good again. There's probably going to be a pygmy showing up tonight slapping his ass cheeks while chanting "Let's go Head Cheese." But Al's not in the mood, for once. TNA attacked Head Cheese on SmackDown, and TNA are going to find out at WrestleMania what happens when Head Cheese goes bad. All things considered though, Al does like the idea of a pygmy slapping his ass cheeks. Al Snow takes on Test in our next Raw match, plus the Acolytes take on the Big Boss Man and Bill Buchanan. Nitro presents a Terry Funk vs Hugh Morrus match. These two Raw matches were very quick. The opening Raw promo plus the main event eats up a lot of runtime, so not much was left for the undercard tonight. Snow was on top form here as he beat Test up on the outside before getting in the ring for some very brief action. He countered the pump handle drop and he performed his snowplow finisher, but for some reason he wanted Blackman to throw Head into the ring and, well, Steve isn't a very good throw. He'll still kick your ass and he can throw criminals, robots and aliens around like they're nothing at all, but he hasn't practiced much with a mannequin head. Test grabbed Head, Snow took Head right on the face. Test wins our match via pinfall. Next, the Big Boss Man and Bill Buchanan came out to face the Acolytes in a tag team match, but this one got interrupted when the Godfather's music played in the arena. On SmackDown, Boss Man interfered in a match between Buchanan and the WWF's resident pimp, and so the Acolytes get offered some money to leave the ring and they happily oblige. They don't even care about the free fast company. Godfather and D'Lo beat Bull and Boss Man up, the heels get out of the ring, and we're going to see these two teams open up WrestleMania when they face each other this Sunday on pay-per-view. On Nitro, Terry Funk said Dustin Rhodes is going to have to wait for a while because the Dirty Funker wants to take care of Hugh Morrus. What Hugh did to Terry, I don't know, and no, I didn't watch Thunder this week. It was during this match when Tony Schiavone announced that next week's broadcast will be a Best of Nitro recap show. And as Terry Funk planted Morrus with a DDT, Schiavone says the April 10th Nitro in 2 weeks' time will be the debut of the new Nitro, a Nitro overseen by Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff. Funk misses his moonsault, Morrus makes him pay with a sit-down powerbomb, Hugh then misses an elbow drop, but when the action goes to the outside, Funk takes a powerbomb and it looks like Terry landed right on his neck. This move made Tony shut up about Russo and Bischoff for just a brief moment, so that shows you how severe it was. Funk gets his wits about him and he smacks Morrus with a chair shot. Dustin Rhodes shows up and the American Nightmare takes a chair shot too. But even after this, Morrus is able to perform the no laughing matter when the match gets back in the ring. And then the referee throws the match out when Dustin gets inside the ropes to hit Morrus and Funk with chair shots. The referee even took a shot which made me bust out laughing when watching this back. I've no idea why, it's just funny. Both Morrus and Funk no-sell the chair shots, Terry and Rhodes fight on the rampway while Morrus, for no reason at all, performs the no laughing matter on Mickey J. I wonder who the referee pissed off backstage. After the match, Hulk Hogan cut a promo where he talked a lot without actually saying anything. He said he's wrestling the wall tonight, which we already knew. He says $1 million are up for grabs, which we already knew. And he says Vampiro's now watching his back, which we already knew. Thanks for the update, Hogan. We'd be fucking lost without you. Our semi-main events tonight feature X-Pac taking on Devon Dudley and Scott Steiner teaming up with Double J to face Curt Hennig and Buff Bagwell. Buff was once again caught by the kid cam trying to creep on a few ladies. This time though, he went after the NWO girls, and the one thing you don't do is go after the NWO girls, because Freakzilla himself will go after you, and that's something you don't want. The big bad booty daddy chasing you down. Sounds terrible. Scott wants some spring break hoochies to join him tonight after the match, like he doesn't have enough already. And Buff decided it was more important to wait for his pyro to go off while his partner got beaten up inside the ring. This was just bad timing because there's no ill will between Buff and Curt when the match gets underway. Bagwell performs a neckbreaker, a clothesline, and a dropkick on Double J. Hennig delivers a hard chop to Jarrett after getting in a cheap shot on Steiner. Big Papa Pump comes in and there's a bit of a timing issue here with Curt and Scott. And then when Buff gets a tag, the NWO are able to take control after a Scotty Steiner suplex. Feels a bit redundant now calling these guys the NWO. Jarrett comes in, he takes a double arm DDT, in comes Curt and Scott for the finish, and the match quickly breaks down while the babyfaces look good. Jarrett takes the blockbuster, but he gets up moments later to hit Curt with his trusty guitar. And when Curt gets put in a Steiner recliner, Buff gets a little attention from the NWO girls. He's in absolutely no rush to get back in the ring. There's nothing finer than a Steiner recliner, the NWO win another one, and this is it, the final NWO match of Reliving the War. We have covered the entire faction's run from start to end, every iteration, every splinter group, the good, the bad, the Harris brothers. But fear not, fans of heel factions, because we're going to get a new heel group very, very soon. Speaking of heel factions, the D-Generation X Run DMC song plays over on Raw again, and I can't get enough of this entrance song, it's so good. The WWF also played a snippet from The Rock's Aggression track performed by the one and only Method Man, and it's another highlight of the CD for sure. I also like the New Age Outlaws track quite a bit. X-Pac and Devon Dudley's a bit of a weird bout, seeing as DX and the Dudleys have no issues heading into WrestleMania, but the match was set up to further DX's Mania match against Kane and Rikishi. Bubba set up a table on the outside before jumping on the apron to pull X-Pac's hair. It's because Bubba's a big old bitch, you see. Turnabout's fair play, so Road Dogg attacked Devon from the apron, and X-Pac won the match with the X Factor. As expected, Kane made an appearance after the bell and he went through the Dudleys just to get his hands on X-Pac. Bubba and Devon decided they weren't going to let Kane just march right through them, so the Big Red Machine took a 3D. The Dudleys left the ring, Tori got inside the rope so she could tell Kane to suck it, and this is something Kane really wanted to do, so he got himself up and he grabbed his ex-girlfriend by the neck. X-Pac ends up delivering a low blow. Kane gets sent through that table that Bubba set up earlier on. So D-Generation X look good heading into WrestleMania this week for their tag team match. Before we move on, there was another GTV segment featuring the Kid and Terry Runnels. This time, the Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young got involved. The women argued, clothes got ripped apart, and this is your build-up for the WrestleMania 2000 Kid fight, ladies and gents. Nothing more to say. On Raw, Big Show teams up with Shane McMahon for a tag team match against The Rock and Vince McMahon. On Nitro, we've got the Wall Brother versus Hulk Hogan. So $1 million is up for grabs in our final WCW match of the evening. I can't believe Wall's in another Nitro main event. Wall's aggressive in the early going, but Hogan fights back with a few punches, a few more punches in the corner, a bite to the forehead, and more punches. An eye rake slows Hogan down for a moment and Hulk gets sent out of the ring, and Wood from the Hood takes a chair shot across the back before Wall sets up a table. By the time the Wall gets done fixing up the furniture, Hulk's back up. Hulk hits his opponent with a few chair shots, but these are absolutely no-sold the moment the match returns to the ring. No idea how neither man was DQ'd, but our match comes to an abrupt end when the Wall performs a chokeslam, and you guessed it, Hogan gets right back up like nothing happened. It really shouldn't surprise anyone at this point, but it's still kind of annoying. Big boot, big leg, Hogan has it won, and ooh, the Wall gets right back up. How does it feel, Hogan? How the tables have turned. The Wall's actually in a great spot to win this thing, and I was a little hopeful for just a moment. I mean, fuck the Wall, but it would still be interesting to see Hogan do the JOB. But then Vampiro ran in to help Hulk, and it's another finish that makes absolutely no sense. One, it makes Hogan look weak, and Hogan never, ever looks weak, brother. And two, Vampiro just cost Hogan $500,000. Vampiro's hurt Hogan's bank account, and that's a big no-no around these parts, Mr. Vampy Balls. Wall gets sent through the table, but he no-sells it. I've never seen so much no-selling in one WCW match. Nitro goes off the air with Hulk standing beside his new best bud Vampiro, but come the big WCW reset, these two won't be buddies anymore. The final Raw main event before WrestleMania. Remember, Triple H and Mick Foley are serving as our special referees. Hunter throws Vince into the ring before The Rock makes his entrance. So once again, the Great One's going to arrive a little late just to get that extra pop. It works every time, so you can't really say anything negative about it. They do milk it here, and Shane performs a Bronco Buster on his own dad before The Rock comes out. And I want you to imagine delivering a Bronco Buster to your own dad as you look at this. If you don't have a dad, then imagine your kid giving you a Bronco Buster. If you don't have kids, and if you don't have a dad, then yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. But here comes The Rock, and the Great One lays the smackdown on the Big Show and Shane. Shane gets dumped out of the ring, Rock's all fired up, but a kick to the face puts The Rock in his place, and Mick Foley begins the count when Show stands on top of the Great One. On the outside, Show gets his head rocked off the commentary table while Rock gets sent into the ring steps. The Big Show then presses Rock over his head and he dumps him into the ring like he's nothing. And then Shane McMahon tags in to get a piece of the People's Champ. Shane has a great jumping back elbow that he shows off here before trying to pin The Rock, but Hunter gives a fast count and Mick Foley's not having it. Mick and Triple H have words while the match continues on. The Boy Wonder makes the mistake of smacking Rock in the face, so Rocky throws Shane in the corner for a ton of right hands. Triple H notices The Rock getting the upper hand and he stops Rock from delivering a clothesline, and Hunter tries to tell Foley that he didn't mean to do it was an accident. So Foley gets some revenge for Rock by punching Shane on the head. And now Hunter and Mick are very close to fighting each other. It's reaching a boiling point here in the Raw main event. Vince McMahon watches on as the Big Show tags back in. Rock takes a back elbow when trying to build up some momentum. This gets followed up with a backbreaker as the crowd chant Big Show sucks, and the referees argue again when Big Show chokes Rock in the corner. Rock takes a power slam. We're building towards a Vince McMahon hot tag, ladies and gents. And the break comes when Rock performs a DDT. Triple H sold it just as well as what Shane did. In comes Mr. McMahon, the crowd goes nuts. The boss is all fired up and he throws one of the worst punches I've ever seen in a wrestling ring, though to be fair, I think Shane shouldn't have ducked out of the way. Linda watches on as her husband beats the shit out of their only son, and when Mr. McMahon delivers a clothesline, Linda doesn't look too bothered. She actually looks like she's enjoying it. On the outside, Shane gets thrown into the ring steps. Mr. McMahon warns Triple H to keep his distance as Shane gets sent over the commentary table. Shane O'Mac gets choked out with a headset cord and Triple H tries to make Vince stop, but Mick Foley's like, don't worry about it, let the kid take a beating. Shane gets sent back over the commentary table, he fights back with a few shots to the midsection, the match gets back inside the ring and Vince pulls off a spear. Billy Boy Goldberg, Vince is not. Big Show headbutts McMahon from the apron, the chairman and Shane need to tag out. McMahon makes it to his corner but Shane isn't so fortunate, so McMahon Jr. takes a spinebuster from The Rock followed by a people's elbow. That should be our match all over. Mick goes down for the cover, Triple H drops an elbow on Foley, and Rock takes a pedigree. But Vince then goes after Hunter and the match continues on. McMahon knocks Hunter out of the ring and moments later, Mick Foley sends Big Show out with a mandible claw. And our match ends with a rock bottom to Shane and Foley counting the 1, 2, 3. The audience were loud throughout the whole match and they were even louder when Rock and Vince got announced as the winners. To see what happens next, join me later in the week for the WrestleMania 2000 review. I want to give Nitro the point this week because their show was so unique and so different, but when you think about it, the only decent match here was the Team Package versus Sting and Vampiro bout, only because of how ridiculous it was. The commentary in particular was insufferable this week on Nitro, and that's not something I'd usually complain about, but watch it yourself and you'll see what I mean. Plus, The Wall versus Hulk Hogan in the main event, so yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'd just be a total idiot to give Nitro the win here. Raw had a great main event, but admittedly, way too much time was spent on building the WrestleMania Fatal 4-Way, and not enough time was dedicated to the undercard. And the undercard could really use that extra time as we approach the big event. Raw's on 129 points, Nitro's on 78, and we've got 22 ties. In the TV ratings, Raw gets a 6.6, Nitro gets a 2.6. WrestleMania 2000's up next, the 5th WrestleMania covered for Reliving the War. It always feels good to hit these landmark events and I do hope you come over to watch the review. Loads of multi-man matches at this show. As a matter of fact, we only have one singles bout and that's Terry Runnels versus the Cat. But we will see Blackman and Snow taking on TNA, Kurt Angle defending his IC and European titles against Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit. We've got a hardcore battle royal that's pure chaos from start to end. And of course, we've got the big Fatal 4-Way main event. Triple H versus The Rock versus Mick Foley versus The Big Show. Every competitor has a McMahon in their corner, so you just know some nonsense is going to go down in the main event. If you want to see Mania 2000 early, along with the next episode of Reliving the War, then you know where to go. If not, I'll see you on Sunday, hopefully for the big pay-per-view. At ease, soldier, thank you very much for watching, and please take care.